Steven Soderbergh reshaped the independent film industry with his 1989 hit Sex, Lives, and Videotape. It won the highest prize at the Cannes Film Festival. In the years that have followed, he has made an eclectic group of films. They have included coming-of-age stories like King of the Hill, crime thrillers like The Limey, and the blockbuster hit Erin. Here's a brief look at his work.
Trying to steal this car, Glenn?
Don't! Oh my God, I can't believe this!
Another one of those days, huh? Nothing seems to be going right.
I don't have the keys to the car.
I see that.
No, I mean, I am not stealing the car.
You're not?
But you're at the very forefront of what is modern. You write about it, you document it. Unlike you, though, I have chosen to embrace it.
Looks like he's brought in the heavy mob.
You're kidding me.
Extra muscle, bodyguards. They look a right load of wallies, though. You should see them.
Let me see.
Patrolling up and down in front of the house.
Let me see.
All done up like cavalry.
The interviews are about sex.
Sex? What about sex?
Everything about sex.
So before you come back here with another lame-ass offer, I want you to think real hard about what your spine is worth, Mr. Walker. Or what you might expect someone to pay you for your uterus, Miss Sanchez. Then you take out your calculator and you multiply that number by 100.
Soderbergh's latest film, Traffic, is a powerful, epic look at the drug war in America.
Michael Douglas.
Just tell me where my daughter is.
Don Cheadle.
We got you making the deal on tape.
Benicio del Toro.
It's all about the money.
Dennis Quaid.
Stay out of things.
And Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Now get out of the car and shoot him in the head.
Traffic.
I am pleased to have him back on this program. Welcome back.
Thanks. Been a while.
It has been a while. Where have you been?
Busy.
You've made a couple of good movies since I last saw you.
Well, we're trying.
Of course, you think they're all good, though, I assume.
That's not true. I would never say that.
I want to talk about this and then sort of double back and talk about the career. Because what happened that everybody knows is Sex, Lives, and Videotape, and then sort of people forgot where you were. They didn't know quite. They didn't realize you were making movies. And then you just had a series of big hits. As I said to you, this has been one great year.
Yeah, it's been a good year. I was just off basically for a few years working, but I think trying on a lot of different things to figure out what my strengths were, what my weaknesses were, and was willing to be under the radar while I did it. And then Out of Sight came along, which was a great opportunity for me, and since then I've sort of gone back and forth between the larger films and the smaller films. I've just gotten a better look at material.
That's a nice place to be, I would assume, the capacity to go back and forth, the capacity
absolutely.
to do both.
Absolutely. And I think the business is shifting constantly, and lately I think the line between independent films and studio films has gotten much more blurry, which is perfect for somebody like me.
Yeah. Tell me about this one. What struck you about this movie that made you want to spend a portion of your life in making it?
I think like a lot of people I've known, friends who've had a problem with drugs, and also I was interested in how they got put through the system. And so I was interested in how the system got designed, and I was also interested in how, since a lot of these drugs don't originate in the United States, how they were getting in to the United States and getting to, in this case, a street corner in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I had a vague idea in the back of my head a movie about drugs could be interesting, but it wasn't much more than that until I ran into Laura Bickford, one of our producers, and she owned the rights to the British miniseries, and I thought, oh, that's a movie.
It's
absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah. Or what did it give you?
It gave us the shape of the canvas. I knew it was going to be a big canvas, but I wasn't quite sure of the diameter, and it really defined that diameter for us. And you can imagine a big canvas with 3 bands running across it, and it just seemed to be, in a sense, the shape of a film screen. I just thought it was perfect.
Did you like the idea of telling these multiple stories at one time?
Well, I felt
the three bands that you're talking about.
It was the only way to do this subject. I mean, otherwise you're making a movie about one of these group of characters, and I just thought it was bigger than that.
Tell me about the decision to approach it the way you did, and what you decided to do.
Well, my instinct was, the more you felt the movie was caught instead of staged, that would be a good thing. And to that end, we adopted a very documentary-like approach and pitched all the performances in a very naturalistic way. And we moved very quickly because I felt that momentum needed to come across on film. So I wanted this feeling that we were chasing the story as it was occurring.
Does it have a message for you? That it's screwed up in Washington and the war against drugs is not being won?
Well, I don't think anybody on either side of this issue would say with a straight face that we're winning the war on drugs. Part of the problem is that we're calling it a war. And one thing that's been interesting to me is that my feelings about this issue are more complicated now than they were 2.5 years ago when we started on this.
How so?
Because even when you take some of the magic wand ideas that you hear floated through to their conclusion, they're not really practical and they're not really workable, and they're certainly not something you can implement anytime soon. So you need to back up a little bit and think about what can you do that can work and that we can make happen today. Prop 36 in California is a great first step. And I think...
Tell the people what Prop 36 says.
Well, in California now, from what I gather, nonviolent users, instead of being sent to prison, the first 2 times they're arrested can demand to be sent to rehab. That idea of treating drug addiction as a health care issue instead of a criminal issue, I think if we could get everybody thinking that way, that would be a huge shift, and I think we'd see a big difference.
So you get the storyline. The decision to to be the cinematographer, was that your decision from the beginning, or did you slide into that because no one else was available?
No. It was something I'd been working toward, and this seemed to be the movie to do it on because of the sort of run-and-gun nature and the fact that 50 to 60% of the film is shot with available light, and I wanted to strip the crew down and just move really fast.
And so that's why it's dark in all those room scenes.
That's right. One lamp on, that was it.
Is that right?
Pretty much.
And how much of it was mobile cameras?
Almost all. I think there are 4 shots in the film that are shot on a tripod, and the rest of it literally was me and the other camera operator, because we were running 2 cameras almost all the time. Camera right on the shoulder, just going.
Casting.
The second most important element in a film after the script.
Right.
And in this case, a wonderful casting director I've worked with before, Deborah Zane, who, because we had such difficulty in setting the film up, had 4 weeks basically to cast what started out as 136 speaking parts. And we made very fast decisions just based on instinct, and called in a lot of favors, people like Albert Finney.
So what does that mean, call in a favor?
In
Albert,
this case,
here's the conversation. Hello, Stephen, what's happening? What do you say?
Got something for you, need a favor. Here are the dates. After you come here, we'll send you anywhere you want for a week, but I need your help.
Let me go back now with Sex, Lives, and Videotape. You make that movie, it made over $100 million.
Worldwide, not here.
Worldwide, I understand worldwide. You were hot. You
for a week, yeah?
Well, no, more than a week. You didn't go for obvious things that I assume would have been given to you. I don't know that for a fact. You went for sort of low-budget, independent,
yeah, I wasn't, there were a couple of things that I had in mind that I wanted to do, and I think instinctually I understood I wasn't ready to enter that arena yet. Yeah. Directing a studio movie with movie stars in it is like standing in the wash of a jet engine for 4 months. And it's just, you know, I really don't think I could have withstood it at that point. I didn't know enough about my own craft yet, I felt. And so I purposely set about to try these different things.
Well, what were you about? I mean, what were you looking for when you made Kafka?
Oh, I thought that was going to be a huge hit.
You did?
No. Okay.
Come on.
I'm not quite sure in retrospect what I was thinking, but what
I mean, do you look back on that now, that period of time, and say, look, I was just out there trying to finding myself, and I don't really know what I was doing. I made some movies that I'm proud of, but it may not necessarily have been the wisest thing for me to do.
Oh, I don't regret any of them. The ones that turned out poorly, you end up learning more from than the ones that turned out well.
Ah, but was there any part of you that was nervous, saying, I may be throwing away a real head start I got here?
No, I felt if you don't take advantage of it, then you'll regret it. But I did know that when Out of Sight sort of presented itself, and I had to pursue that movie. I wasn't even in the top 10 of people they were speaking to. That very consciously was a decision to enter that side of the business, that frankly was off limits to me because of my, marginalizing myself.
That's a good way to express it. You were marginalizing yourself.
And I was concerned about that.
Consciously marginalizing yourself.
Yeah, but it is a dead end, just as making all studio movies with movie stars.
So how did you get Out of Sight?
Everyone, I'm not being glib. Everyone else said no.
Because they didn't think it would make it? It wasn't a good movie? It had no potential?
A variety of reasons. Scheduling. One of them had just done a crime movie. One of them, some person said, I don't think George is good for that.
Clooney's not right?
Yeah. And one of them was just too busy. I mean, there were a couple of people who were just, who were hotter than the center of the earth. And they said no.
So they're going down and checking them all off, and they say, Soderbergh, whatever happened to him? Let's take a chance.
They got down to the S's,
and there you were.
And I went in and found a very receptive group of people to the kinds of references that I was making for Out of Sight, which is talking about 70s films and talking especially about Hal Ashby and about a movie like The Last Detail, which I found had a perfect blend of drama and humor. And I said,
this is the Nicholson film?
Yeah, terrific movie.
I remember the train scenes.
Yeah. Great. And I said, that's the feel I want. And luckily, they all knew that movie and all agreed that was a great sort of Rosetta Stone of reference.
Okay, help me understand the reference in terms of how it translated to Out of Sight.
Well, The Last Detail is, I think, by definition, a drama, but has a lot of humor in it, but all very organic. It's not gag humor, it's character humor. And that combined literally with the fact that a lot of it took place in winter and had a feel that I thought would be similar to the Detroit material in Out of Sight. So they believed me, and I got it.
And then came Erin Brockovich?
No, then I did The Limey.
Oh, The Limey was
immediately after. And then while we were...
Well, that got a lot of attention. That was a favorite movie for a lot of critics.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it was a fun movie to make, and Terrence Stamp, is a great actor.
And so is Guzman.
Yeah.
Is this when you got?
Louis Guzman had a very small part in Out of Sight that whetted my appetite, and he had a much more substantial part in The Limey. And then when we were developing Traffic, in those two roles, the DEA agents, I had said to everyone, I want Don Cheadle and Louis Guzman.
Together?
Yeah. Oh, together, for sure. They should have their own show.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why don't you make a buddy movie with them?
Well, everybody was talking about a prequel because
how they came.
I won't tell. One of them doesn't
the early
make
adventures
it.
of.
Yeah, exactly. They're terrific actors and provided, in this case, some very needed sort of humor, to give you a release.
Erin Brockovich, what happened? How'd you get that?
Jersey Films, who produced Out of Sight and Erin Brockovich, when we were finishing Out of Sight.
That's Danny DeVito, isn't it?
Danny DeVito, Michael Schamberg, Stacey Sher.
Right.
When we were finishing Out of Sight, they said, well, we'd like to work together again. We'd like to talk to you about this idea that we have. And they told me the story of Erin Brockovich just verbally. one day when we were finishing. I said, "That sounds like the worst thing I've ever heard. Why would you think I'd want to do that?"
Well,
and
we've certainly grown from being number 10 on the list to that's the worst thing in the world. Why would you ever think I would want to make your film?
Yeah, I was, you know, putting on
a couple of years make a big difference, don't they?
Less than a couple years. And so I went off and made the Limey because there were certain narrative ideas in Out of Sight that I felt I hadn't gotten to explore. And
like what? What does that mean?
Well, Out of Sight had a sort of a time loop, you know, sort of flashback time loop throughout. And I thought that you could be even a little more aggressive with this sort of fragmentation, even within scenes. And so I called Lem Dobbs, who wrote Kafka, actually, because I knew he had this script. And I said, let's rethink this, because I want to, you know, I have some narrative things I want to play with, and because the spine of the film is so straight, I felt I could get away with this kind of fragmentation. But coming out of the Limey, which was another crime film, I felt, as I often do, that I wanted an experience exactly the opposite. And literally one day, as I was frustrated by our attempts to come up with a structure for the Limey, the script for Erin Brockovich, which they'd sent me anyway, was on my desk, and I picked it up and read it and put it down and called and said, I want to do this.
Well, did you preface that by how stupid was I not to get this in the first place?
Of course not.
Oh, it shows you I don't understand anything about Hollywood, doesn't it?
Jeez.
You know, you basically called up and said, this may be your lucky day. I've reconsidered, and maybe I'll give you a chance to allow me to direct your film.
God, probably. But I did it. I said this. It's all about when stuff hits you. And coming out of the Limey, I wanted to do something very straightforward. I knew Julia was attached already and read it and thought, this is a role that she's absolute, you know, it's just going to be, she's going to give a towering performance in this.
This is just coming.
And it was a female protagonist. She was in every scene in the film, and I felt like I hadn't done that yet. Even Sex Lies was sort of an ensemble piece, and I wanted to make a movie in which there was a female character that we followed.
What do you do now, as a matter of course, that you didn't do 5 years ago?
I don't think so much.
Really?
Believe it or not. Works in politics, why can't it work in filmmaking? I really don't.
Well, no. I mean, the point is well taken, though. In other words, you develop your instincts and you trust them, and you don't have to sort of, what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't agonize over. I've gotten better, I hope, at determining. There are strategic points throughout the process that you really need to focus your energy, and I've gotten better about figuring out where those are, and also just going on my gut and not looking back.
Wow. When you finished that, did you have lots of options, things you could have chosen, or was traffic just the thing you wanted to do?
Lately, they've been overlapping so much that in the midst of Erin Brockovich, we were having meetings about traffic, and in the midst of the Limey, I was having meetings about Erin Brockovich.
Does that drive you crazy, or can you segmentize and categorize?
It's good in a way because it makes you very dispassionate in a good way about what you're working on. You become very objective and non-precious about the movie that you're working on. I find it really helpful.
You want to be the cinematographer for all your movies?
Well, it would be hard to go back.
Really?
It would be hard to, and that's not to say that believe me, there are 300 people in local 600 that are better cinematographers than I am.
Yeah. Well, by the way, you had to join the union before you could do this.
Yes, absolutely. But to insert somebody now between me and the film would be really hard. So, but there's a lot of on-the-job training going on here. I mean, there's stuff I reshot on Traffic. If somebody else had been the cinematographer, the guy would have been fired. I mean, I'm not kidding. I mean, stuff would come back, and I just go,
oh God, how could I have done that?
We're doing that again.
Now, what was it? Because you didn't have the right lens? You didn't have the right focus? You didn't have the right what?
Well, as you know, the looks in each of the stories are sort of extreme.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
And so we're, in terms of lenses and processing and exposure, we were often in territory where, like being a pilot, you're sort of flying on instruments, because what I'm seeing through the lens bears no relation to what I'm going to get back from the lab. And sometimes we missed, you know, and I just go and say, we got to do it again.
Benicio del Toro. Crucial to this movie?
Yeah.
He's sitting out there, so is Laura sitting out there, but I'm a huge fan of his.
You should be.
I know, right? Exactly. I deserve no medals for this, it's obvious. How crucial was he to this film for you?
Well, what's great about Benicio is he's thorough, and half of getting to something better is asking questions. And the characters originally envisioned was a bit more of a guy who was actively and consciously trying to manipulate a lot of different people and situations to his own ends.
Yeah.
And during the early conversations that I would have with Benicio, he would say, "Gee, can we talk about the fact that maybe that doesn't leave me a lot of places to go? And is there another way into this guy that, for the audience, is a little more empathetic?" And we started talking about somebody who is basically a good cop, who just gets caught in this web that he cannot get clear of. Or he does sort of at the end, but at a great cost. And so I talked to, you know, we would have these long discussions, and I would go back to Gagan and say, "Hey, I talked to Benicio, and what do you think about X, Y, and Z?" And we would sort of talk.
Was he unique among the actors? Did you do the same thing with Douglas or with Jones? Or
I had conversations like that with almost all of them, but that story and that character were really open to the most play, I think. And the fact that it wasn't my culture, you know, that I was trying to portray, and I was trying to be really open about whether we were sort of getting it right and whether we were making it interesting. So it was great. I mean, that period of time, it's so fun to talk about when it's all potential and you're not on the set.
Leads me right into my next question. Is it the movie you wanted to make?
It is. I think almost more than any other film I've made. I don't know why. It just...
what you intended to do, you did.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it feels exactly the way I hoped it would feel.
And what do you think the audience is going to come away with, other than this has been an entertainer? How long is it? 2 hours
220.
Plus? 2:20. That's about as long as you can make it, isn't it?
Oh, no, I can made it a lot longer.
What was the longest you ever made?
This is the longest film I've ever made. Yeah. I mean, there's an hour more material.
Oh, you could have.
Oh, yeah, the first cut was 3:10. You know, but
is it better at 3:10 than it is at 2:20? And just in terms of you, forget marketing people and theater people and all of that.
No, I don't think so. I'm luckily one of those people that, you know, the version that's released, that's the director's cut. I'm not one to whine about, you know, having to cut my movie down.
Under what circumstances would you give up director's cut?
Oh, on paper,
yeah,
I've only had it twice.
Really?
Yep.
And how about this one?
I had it on paper up to a certain length, and I went over that length. So I sort of had it.
So, well, come on, explain this to me.
Well, meaning if the movie was 2 hours and 15 minutes, then technically I could do anything I could do. Schizopolis 2.
Yes. Oh, I hope not.
Yeah, exactly. If it was under 135 minutes.
Yeah.
Now I went over that, but I think, you know, it's a moot point. I mean, the film. Everybody sensed and going in, I said, people, this movie's 220, 225. It's a 165-page screenplay. Just get used to the idea. And so it wasn't really a problem.
What's next for you?
Ocean's 11.
Clooney.
Yep.
Plays Martin?
Well, no. In theory, he's playing...
The character Martin played.
In theory, he's playing the Frank Sinatra character, Danny Ocean.
Right.
But it doesn't really track like that. We've taken the basic idea and thrown the rest of it out and started over. But it's a big heist movie. I love heist movies. So
there's always crime in every movie you do.
I don't know why. I can't imagine that. The closest, you know, I ever got to crime before I got out of high school, I had to have been looking at somebody's paper, you know, in class. But I guess For somebody like me, it's genre films are a great way to sort of sneak things in and indulge preoccupations without people noticing too much. And so I guess that's why I keep going back to it.
I should make this note. Traffic is slated for release on December 27th in New York and Los Angeles, which means it qualifies for the Oscars, and on January 14th nationwide.